Welcome back. Happy Tuesday. That's right. So I do record these little 5-minute talks, so they're always available on the YouTube page. I'll send you the link to that, trying to clean it up a little bit so it's just easier on the eye. It's quite a learning curve. I'm trying to build some new samskaras in my brain. Samskara, we remember, is the yoga term for the grooves or the wires that are built into our brain. And it's interesting, the ancient yogis and modern neuroscientists have both come to the same conclusion: that is what fires together, wires together, that our most habitual thoughts, coupled with strong mental energy, create these pathways in our brain. Of course, this is important. Without these pathways, reality, all the sense stimuli coming in would just be an indecipherable assault, and we would not be able to make sense of anything. So to live in a habitable, familiar enough, reliable reality, our brains create patterns or pathways. And so it's fantastic news that our brains do this. But it's also, it's the good news and the bad news. Whatever pathways are built in, they become so extraordinarily strong and habitual that it's unlikely that we will get out of some of the deepest patterns in our brain. The good news is it's been proven over the last few decades that we can, and the great principle is called neuroplasticity. It's the ability of the brain to create new, strong wirings of perception in the brain and of action and of behavior. We'd sort of be lost without it. And yet this was the opinion of neuroscience up until the 60s and the 70s. The phrase wasn't coined until the 60s or the 70s. And it still was a theory until they developed brain imaging. And it was discovered sort of by accident, by putting people who'd suffered really damaging or catastrophic brain injuries. They were discovering that these people who'd had significant brain damage were beginning to develop and had developed new patterns of wiring in their brain. In other words, different parts of their brain were lighting up. And this was associated with their developing capacity to think or to move or perceive in ways. They were doing a workaround in their brain around damage that had occurred in the brain. And then they discovered people could do this intentionally and willfully. Amen. Thank God we can change not just little habits, but we can change deep habits. What sort of deep habits might we want to change? How about the habit of being anxious, the habit of being fearful, the habit of being, what's another good one? Anger, rage, depression, loneliness. The list goes on and on. Obviously, there are good samskaras and bad samskaras, and we can change them. It does require intentional effort. It requires a determined mental will on our part to change the patterns in us that are no good. If we don't intentionally lift the needle out of the groove and place it someplace else, the groove is only going to get deeper. So what's the number one catalyst for changing a deep pattern of painful perception in our brain? Pain. Pain is the catalyst. But the pain is already there. We just learn to use the pain in a more productive way. The pain of awareness of an old pattern is the motive that brings awareness, and then a re-aiming of our consciousness, and then a determined action to change it. Meditation is our number one key. It takes the weight off of the needle. It gives us an opportunity to lift. It also gives us an opportunity to, prayer is the word that I'm going to go for. Prayer is the conscious acknowledgement that there's a far deeper groove of well-being and bliss and joy that runs through us. And that by appealing to that, we can have these great samskaras in our mind adjusted or altered. We don't need to adjust the ones of love and peace and compassion and charity and truth and beauty. Those are the deepest grooves of our being. But the ones that we've set in place that might be suboptimal, so to speak, we can change those. And in meditation, we'll find these grooves and then we can adjust them. This will be the topic for the rest of the week, how to find the painful grooves in our consciousness and set them in a new path. And off we go. It's a great adventure to do this. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for listening.